record on this computer. Okay. So how's my sound? Do I sound okay? Coming in clear?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep.
So tonight we are picking back up on chanting. So chanting in general, Jijang Bosal chanting in particular. Before we, I've got some stuff to talk about. I've got kind of an idea of what would be good to cover so that people have kind of background information and things that I find useful and interesting that I find helpful in my own practice of Jijang Bosal chanting. But if people have questions or anything you want to bring up or anything you want to make sure that we talk about, please feel free now or at any time during the class. Okay. I am going to, let's see. Here it is. This is it. So I'm going to share my screen now. I'm going to, and share the sound. I'm going to keep an eye on my email in case, no, that's too bad. Okay, so this is the, let's see. This is the first slide from the class, and I just wanted to show it again because it has the schedule. It has the schedule that just to kind of remind myself. Let me get my phone from here. Let's see. Just so I keep on schedule, and it also has the schedule for the whole year-long class, which chants we're going to be doing in what order. Just to remind people of that, where we're at. So we will do, the class lasts for a year. We will spend 2 months on each one of these 6 chants. Starting with Jijang Bosal, we've spent 1 meeting on Jijang Bosal. So we have 2 meetings a month, which means that we'll have 4 meetings on each of these chants. Other than that, we don't really need to look at this slide anymore. Let's go up to where we were at. This is the last slide that we really looked at. We were talking about, and I'm going to talk more about the overall structure of the chant. This is as far as we had gotten. If I well, let's see. All right, so we've gotten up to the point where we've let's go back one. Oh yeah, so this is the opening of the chant. Sometimes it's called the invocation. It can also be thought of as refuge part of the chant, taking refuge. This chant is really a complete Buddhist ceremony in itself. It begins with taking refuge and it ends with sharing of merit, and that's pretty much what defines a complete Mahayana Buddhist ceremony. It's also good to throw in, before sharing of merit, the special mantra to repair any mistakes or omissions that you've had during the ceremony. And at the very end, after the sharing of merit, there's also, well, I'll talk about this more, there's the a verse of praise for Shakyamuni Buddha, which comes from the Avatamsaka Sutra. But this is the beginning of the chant, the taking of refuge, basically taking refuge in Jijang Bosal, or praising, venerating. If you read, a lot of Western Buddhists often avoid terms like praying and worshiping and devotion, but when you read English translations of Korean Buddhists talking about what this chant and other chants mean, they say pray, worship, devotional. That's the language that they speak in. Very they do not problematize those words and concepts. It's not a problem for them whatsoever. In fact, it's one of the reasons why they do this chant or this kind of chant. But anyway, so the chant begins with, and we talked about this in the first class, um, uh, basically these attributes of Jijang Bosal, uh, and uh, and each of these attributes or names of Jijang Bosal begins with Namu, which means bow down to. So we are bowing down to. Bowing down to things is another thing that sometimes Western Buddhists are a little squirrely about. Let's see. All right. Now, after we say Namu Nambang Hwaju Jijang Bosal, Namu Yumyeon Gyoju Jijang Bosal, Namu Daewon Bonjeon Jijang Bosal, then we say Namu Nambang Hwaju Yumyeon Gyoju Daewon Bonjeon Jijang Bosal, which is just repeating again what was in the first three lines one more time with feeling. And excuse me, I'm still getting over a cold, and now I have this kind of annoying cough that is, almost gone, but not quite. If I knew how to filter video, I could probably get rid of that annoying sound, which I'm sure is extremely annoying on the recording. Yeah. So, all right, well, let's finally move on. This is a slide that I'm trying to work my way up to. This is kind of a very, very, very busy slide, which is all about all the different things, and not even all the different things, just some of the different things that are meant by the Buddhist term Yum-bul. Yum-bul is actually a very ancient Buddhist term, which people often associate specifically with the practice of Nembutsu. With Nembutsu, which is just the Japanese pronunciation of Yum-bul. Nyanfo is more or less the Mandarin pronunciation of Yum-bul. Yum-bul is the Korean pronunciation of Yum-bul. These are two Chinese characters that just mean mindfulness, Buddha. And so it's mindfulness of Buddha. So mindfulness practice is as old as Buddhism. And so this term can just refer in general to mindfulness practice. It can refer specifically to mindfulness of Buddha. And that, even when you say specifically mindfulness of Buddha, what does that mean? For some people, it means a visualization. Some people, it means sitting in front of a statue, an image, a painting of a Buddha. Sometimes it means sitting in front of an altar, lighting incense, chanting the name of a Buddha or Bodhisattva. Which brings us to the next one, mindfulness of Buddha. Of course, there's actually lots of Buddhas, and lots of Bodhisattvas. So very often, Yum-bul means a mindfulness of a particular Buddha or Bodhisattva, which again, that could mean different things. One of the things that it can mean is some particular type of chanting practice that is specifically associated with a particular Buddha or Bodhisattva. And chanting and mantra practice, especially in the kinds of Yum-bul chanting that Zen Master Seung San taught his students, are combined. And that's one of the things we're going to talk about tonight. We referred to it a little bit in the first class, but there are a lot of mantras that are in the Yum-bul chanting practices that Zen Master Seung San taught. So over here, these are just some of the things that Yum-bul can mean. The first word in Yum-bul, Yum, mindfulness, is actually a very interesting Chinese character. It's a combination of the characters for now and mind. So mindfulness means now mind. So so we are always mindful, and and that's a good teaching, because we're always mindful of something. Mindfulness practice means exercising some choice in what to be mindful of, because whatever is in our mind right now is what we're being mindful of. And so mindfulness practice doesn't mean we are now going to be mindful, because we're always mindful. It means now we're going to choose what to be mindful of. And so over here, on the other side of the middle part of this very busy slide are just some of the popular Buddhists and Bodhisattvas that there are Yumbo practices for. I didn't even include Jijang Bosal here, but Kwanzaa Bosal, Namu Amida Bo, and this is what one actually chants repeatedly when one is doing a Yumbo practice for Avalokiteshvara, in this case, Amitabha here, Namu Amida Bo. Shakyamuni Buddha has a Yumbo practice that is especially done on one day a year, either his Buddha's Enlightenment Day, or sometimes, well, you could do it on any day that is especially associated with Shakyamuni Buddha, such as Buddha's Enlightenment Day or Buddha's birthday. Yaksa Yorebo, that's the medicine Buddha chant for Yumbo practice for the medicine Buddha. Mirok is for Maitreya Buddha. And in addition, Korean people also do Yumbo practice for different, as I say over here, traditional, that is, pre-Buddhist. These are the mountain spirit, Sanshin, the seven stars, Chilsung, I think is how it's pronounced. The kitchen god. This right here, this picture here, this is an image from one of the major temples in Korea, Dongaksa Temple. This is in the kitchen at Dongaksa. This is a little, not just an image, but an altar to the kitchen god at Dongaksa. And also the 10 kings of the underworld, who are closely associated with Jijang Bosal. Anyway, there's Zen Master Sung San taught his students 4 Yumbo chants. One for Jijang Bosal, one for Kwanzaa Bosal, one for Namu Amida Bo, and one for Sogamoni Bo. There are many others, actually. And and just when people do these kinds of chants, the most of what people are doing when they do these chants is just repeating either Kwan Seum Bo Sa, Kwan Seum Bo Sa, Kwan Seum Bo Sa over and over again, or Namu Amida Bo, Namu Amida Bo, or Soga Monibo, Soga Monibo, Yaksa Yorebo, Yaksa Yorebo, Mirok Junbo, Mirok Junbo, over and over and over again. And it's there are some really amazing YouTube videos of people doing this for 2 hours, solid 2 hours, chanting just this one of these phrases over and over again. And that's not the style that it's not exactly the style that Zen Master Sun San taught. He taught combining the repeating these maybe 108 times, which takes a few minutes actually, with some stuff at the beginning, the invocation or the taking refuge part, and then the mantras at the end and the closing. Which let's see, is that possibly on the next slide? Oh well. This is one more thing to emphasize about when doing either Jijang Bosal chanting or any other kind of chanting. Let's see. Did I cover this in another slide? I want to look ahead to see if I did. Oh yeah. So I'm jumping ahead. I'll come back. I'll come up to this slide again, revisit this, because this is an important topic. People often have certain associations with certain bodhisattvas. It's not unlike the way, for example, the Hindus have associations with different Hindu gods. Certain gods are good for certain things. Catholics have certain associations with saints. Certain saints are the saint of this, the saint of that. Um, and uh, that it people often associate Jijang Bosal chanting specifically with funeral rites or rites in honor of someone who has died. Um, but uh, and the Buddha actually did teach this kind of chanting. He taught it's called Parita chanting in Pali, and I'll come back to that in a minute. But the idea that there are specific chants for specific things is legitimate, but there's more to it um, than that, which is what I want to emphasize in this slide. Jijang Bosal is definitely associated with death and the afterlife, but we shouldn't overemphasize that. Jijang Bosal is one of the four great bodhisattvas, and so the four great bodhisattvas are Manjushri, Samantabhadra, Avalokiteshvara, and Kshitigarbha. Kshitigarbha, who is also Jijang Bosal. And so Avalokiteshvara, who in Korean Buddhism is called Kwanseum Bosal, she is often prayed to by couples who want to have children. But it would be a big mistake to just think of Kwanseum Bosal as some sort of fertility goddess and only that. Although, I mean, that is one of the reasons for the popularity of Kuan Yin, Kuan Yin, Kanon, Kanzeon, Kwanseum Bosal throughout East Asia, is because couples who want to have children pray to her for children. And there's definitely an association that people have with her, but it isn't a limitation. It doesn't. It's not a doesn't define her. Um, uh, Chitigarbha or Jijang Bosal can be called upon at any time. Any of us beings in Jambudvipa, which is where we are, face difficulty. And the worse our difficulty is, the more Jijang Bosal is dedicated to helping us. This is a quote which I've probably mentioned before already, but it's always good to remember this, because beings of Jambudvipa have strong habits of doing evil actions. No sooner have they left the lower realms, they go back again. This requires Jijang Bosal to work hard through many kalpas in guiding them across to liberation. And this over here, as you're, which I would, really encourage you to do. I mean, it's interesting to learn about the Jijang Bosal chant and learn about different chants, but I think it's important to actually learn the chant, which requires doing it a lot. But while you're learning the chant, it's good to not only know kind of in general what you're chanting, but to educate yourself on Jijang Bosal. And one of the best ways to learn about Jijang Bosal is to read the sutra that is about Jijang Bosal. This is an okay translation of it. If you look at the YouTube videos for the class that I'm teaching right now, another class on the Kshitigarbha Sutra, there's links to a number of translations of that sutra. All right. The as I said before, and I at the risk of it says it right down here again too. There are four different Yumbo chants that Zen Master Sung San taught people all over the world. Kwanseum Bosal chanting, Namo Mita Bull chanting, Sogamuni Bull chanting, and the one that we're talking about right now, which is Jijang Bosal chanting. They all have the same basic structure. In fact, a lot of the chants are exactly the same. They most of them begin with the same. Jijang Bosal has a different start. They all have an invocation, or actually I should edit this slide to say invocation / refuge. All of them then of course, since each of these four different chants is dedicated to a different Buddha or Bodhisattva, this part, the recitation of the name of the Buddha or Bodhisattva, is different. And then the five mantras, again for Kwansin Bosal, Namu Amida Bol, and Sogamuni Bol chanting, all have the same five mantras. Jijang Bosal has the first mantra is different. Also, and Sogamuni Bol has an extra section in here before the mantras start. Well, that's another story. It's a little like 4 verses, and then all of them end the same with these praises of Shakyamuni Buddha that are taken from actually they're almost the ending verses of the Avatamsaka Sutra. So if you've ever tried to read the Avatamsaka Sutra, which is huge, and you say, oh, well, let's just skip to the end, see how it ends. This is how it ends with the little verse that we recite at the end of all of these 4 chants. So, do you have a question, Joe? Go right ahead.
Yes, thank you. Just because you're mentioning that, hey, there are these 4 Yeom chants, and who they belong to, is specific to the Sung San lineage, or the Chogyey?
Yeah, so it's not even Chogyey; it's just Korean Buddhism generally. So the most of these chants, and actually, so I'm gonna. Let's put me over here. Almost all of this has been part of Korean Buddhism for centuries. Of course, it changes over the centuries. There was a book written at the beginning of the 20th century, just about 100 years ago. That was the first time that most of these chants, and then a whole bunch of chants that we're not covering in this class. It's a long book which has a lot of long chants and ceremonies in it. But it was the first time that it wasn't the first time these chants had been collected together, but it was the first time that there had been an attempt to really widely disseminate, to put into people's hands the kind of information that we're covering in this class. And so that meant 2 things. One, it was published and made available very inexpensively. And secondly, everything was, and this is kind of interesting, everything was translated into Korean, because so the chants are these chants are either in Sanskrit or in Chinese, or some combination of Sanskrit and Chinese. And so when this book was published, it was the parts that are well, it was all spelled out phonetically in the Korean script, Hangul. So the chants were still kept in the original form, but they were spelled out in a way that the average Korean person could read. And Hangul is actually a fairly simple writing system. When King Sejong invented Hangul back in 1400 something or 1600 something, I forget what I'm spacing out on the year. But he declared that his aim was to create a writing system that a stupid person could learn in 10 days, which is like as far as, so like up until then, the only writing system that people in Korea had was Chinese characters. And traditionally, even up, so that was hundreds of years later, it was still the tradition in Buddhism to only write out the chants using Chinese characters. So 100 years ago was the first time that there was really an attempt made to, so the chanting was still done, but people just kind of followed along and didn't have it was hard for people to follow along to know what they were chanting, and they couldn't look things up. They couldn't, they couldn't double check. Am I chanting this right? How did that go again, or anything like that? And so, anyway, so almost everything in these chants is in the chants that we're covering. All the chants we're covering in this class are in that book. In fact, I can bring it up. In fact, let's see, how are we doing on time? So we're going to take a break in 2 minutes, and and we did not. Before we take a break, we were supposed to chant the Great Dharani at the beginning, and due to the technical problems and my confusion, we didn't do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share the screen now. We'll chant the Great Dharani, which takes like 3 minutes, and then we'll have a 5-minute break. Okay? How's that? All right, good. So I'm already sharing my screen, but now I just gotta figure out. I know I have it here somewhere. No, it's the other chant that we're going to do. Let's see if I can find it. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, only because I get embarrassed when I'm looking around trying to find things on my computer that I should. Oh yeah, I know where it is. In fact, I made a new folder just so I would be able to find the chants that I need to find for this class. Let's see. Oh no, that's not right. Okay. So instead of the Great Dharani, we're going to do the Heart Sutra, which is also a good chant to do. And I'm going to share my screen. And it also takes about 3 minutes. How long does the Heart Sutra take? In this recording, it takes exactly 3 minutes. And then we'll take a 5-minute break. This is zoom. Oops. Sorry. Hi, Joe.
Hi there.
You're back.
Yeah. Anyone else?
Still waiting on a few. There's Elizabeth. Hi, Elizabeth. Good. All right. So this is on page what? Page numbers in here. Right. Okay. So you can see my screen, right? There's some text up here. This is from the book that I was referring to. This is a recent English translation of the Essential Compendium for Buddhists, the Buljab Pilam. This is the book that was written about 100 years ago, published in Korea, and that the Korean Choge order, which didn't exist 100 years ago in Korea. The Choge order is a new thing that only came into existence after the liberation of Korea from Japanese occupation. So the Choge order as an institution didn't exist. Korean Buddhism existed, and so what happened was that there was a split in the mainstream of Korean Buddhism between the Choge and the Taego orders, which I will not go into. But they both do the same chants. In fact, there is a Taego Buddhist temple in Chicago that has its chanting sheet online that I've looked at, and they do basically the same chants. So it's not a Choge thing or a Taego thing. It's a Korean Buddhism thing, and if you go back far enough, it's a just a Buddhist thing. But anyway, so this book, this is an English translation, which if you know where to look on the Choge Order's website, you can just download this big PDF for free. It's a really wonderful resource. It's a lot to wade through, it's kind of hard to find because there's a lot more in here than what is included in the chanting practice that Zen Master Sung San taught to his students. But it's all quite interesting, and anyway. So I'm trying to go up to the page that I was looking at, where it's kind of explaining. Okay, so here's kind of what I was talking about. The Essential Compendium. This book has unique characteristic not seen in previous ceremonial manuals. The pages are split in half, with the text written in Chinese characters on the top half of the page and its equivalent in Korean written on the bottom half. Although we can't say, so it wasn't the first time that the Korean script Hangul had existed for several hundred years already, and some use had been made of it, but this was the first time that a fairly complete uh, manual for all the chants and practices and ceremonies and liturgies. It had everything not really translated. It wasn't translated into Korean. Well, sometimes it's translated. A lot of times it's just transliterated, spelled out. Like when we write out using letters that we can understand, Namu Amita Bul. That's not a translation. That just says this is the way it's pronounced. We're sounding it out. And let's see. Oh yeah, keep going. Just want to. Oh well. Anyway, the point is, and this is actually an important point, especially when talking about mantras. Some people have kind of a. Some people get funny when it comes to mantras. And some people think, oh, mantras, mantras are secret, mantras are special. You have to have initiations, you have to have special permission, you have to have this or that. That's not generally the case in the Korean Buddhist tradition, there are schools of Buddhism that call themselves esoteric or tantric or whatever, and in those schools, the teachers will say that you need special empowerments or initiations or whatever. Um, uh, but you can go to you can go to the Choge Order's website and download all of these mantras and Dharanis. You can go to there are many different websites around the world that have the mantras and Dharanis and chants and things that Zen Master Sung San taught, and like I said, there's at least one Taego, which is a slightly different Korean Buddhist group. There's at least one Taego temple in the United States that has its chanting book, listed on its website. So, yeah, Joe, go ahead.
Just a quick question. Okay, I hear what you're saying, but is it that some of these schools believe that these are so, I don't know, magical or powerful or something that they can't get into the wrong hands? And what do they produce? That if someone gets a hold of a mantra and starts chanting that, what's going to happen? Right?
Well, right. I mean, actually, many teachers historically have had the same concern about meditation practice. As a general rule,
interesting.
Meditation instructions are not just, put out willy-nilly. And actually, if you buy most books on Zen Buddhism and written in the English language, they don't have much in the way of meditation instruction. Now, to some extent, that's because, hey, you find it if you manage to track down a Zen teacher and say, "How do I meditate?" They won't give you much in the way of meditation instructions. They might just say, "Just sit," or sit like this, or have this posture.
Sure.
But
do you find this to be an Asian cultural phenomenon?
Well, there's different reasons for people to want to do mantras. There's different reasons for people to want to do meditation. People often have interesting, to put it diplomatically, ideas about what they can attain or get from doing, whether it's chanting a mantra or,
Right.
whatever. There people, and in Buddhism, historically, Buddhism has not completely distanced itself from the idea as okay. In 2 slides from now, let me get back into the slideshow mode. Go back to current slide. Now, this is an important question. Why practice? Why meditate? Why chant? And oh yeah, all right. So, of course, sorry. So in the history of Buddhism, and in what's so-called early Buddhism, Theravada Buddhism, Pali Buddhism. I'm gonna minimize the images, at least on my screen now. The Buddha taught chants to cure diseases, to make it rain, to protect people from flesh-eating zombies. These are all well documented in the Pali Canon of Theravada Buddhism. So the chant that he taught to cure epidemics, to end epidemics, to make it rain, end droughts, and to ward off flesh-eating zombies. This is the Ratana Sutta, and the Ratana Sutta is basically just Ratana is Pali for jewel. Ratana Sutta is basically homage to the three jewels in Pali. I mean, it's not exactly, but it is a chant in praise of the three jewels. And the Buddha taught it to the people of Vaishali. And when he taught it to them, the epidemic that they were experiencing ended, the drought that they were experiencing ended, and all the flesh-eating zombies ran away.
That's great.
Yeah, the Metta Sutta, which is basically this is a rough analogy, but the Metta Sutta is essentially the Pali version of the Great Dharani. It's a chant in praise of loving kindness, compassion. That's what the Great Dharani is, also known as the Great Compassionate Dharani. The Metta Sutta, which I know that John, who's here, it's a favorite chant of his, was originally taught by the Buddha to help some of his students who were being bothered by spirits who lived in this forest where the students were trying to have a meditation retreat. And as soon as the students started to chant the Metta Sutta, the forest spirits were no longer angry, so it calmed them.
Right.
The Buddha taught Angulimala, one of his students, taught him a chant to use to help a woman in childbirth. And that chant is still used to this day, not just in Theravada Buddhist countries, but throughout the Buddhist world. That chant, or in fact, the entire there's a short sutta in which the story of the Buddha teaching Angulimala this chant. Often the whole sutra is read to women who are in childbirth in order to help them. There are also, and this in Pali Buddhism, in Theravada Buddhism, this is called parita chanting, and parita means protection. And so Theravada Buddhists explain this as chants for protection and blessing, and they have a special parita chant for protection from fire, and a special parita chant for protection from snakes. So
it seems like, okay, people are chanting certain mantras for an individual, special favors, much like petitioning a saint to deliver some desire, whether it's to be rich or whether it's to be healthy or cured of this or that. Is there any type of chanting or mantras that are just, hey, let's do this just for the sake of it? It's fun. We like it.
Right. Well,
the answer is no. I'm kidding.
Well, no, I mean, so the Metta Sutta, if you look at the content of the Metta Sutta, there's nowhere in the Metta Sutta does it say, oh, please, Buddha, protect us from these forest spirits who are trying to scare us. It doesn't say that. It says loving kindness. If you, although it's often said that the Great Dharani cannot be translated, that's actually not true. You can reconstruct the original Sanskrit that's in it and work it out. But when you work it out, it's when you work it out, it has a lot of stuff about, oh, the blue-necked one, oh, the boar-faced one, oh, this, oh, that. It's all of these epithets of Avalokiteshvara, many of which are very, very, very similar to the epithets of Shiva in Hinduism, including the blue-necked one in particular, is a shared epithet of Shiva and Avalokiteshvara. But it doesn't say, oh, Buddha, please give me whatever. However, the Great Dharani is extremely popular. It's in slightly different forms, but in China, Japan, Vietnam, Korea, people chant the Great Dharani for whatever, And I mean, I don't think that I mean, people probably do, but I mean, one of the main examples that I know of is people chant the Great Dharani to help them pass tests. It's very popular for that. And I have a friend who is an old friend I haven't seen for many years, but he was working on his board certifications. He's a physician, and he would chant the Great Dharani before he would take his board certifications. And he also was very smart, studied really hard, and he passed them all. So this is, this is an interesting. Okay, let's get some input from the other people who are here. Elizabeth, John, what do you think? Chanting for stuff. Thoughts. People have to have thoughts on that.
Yeah, like what you said, it's usually in the form of may this happen, not make it happen. May it be possible. And also, when I was in graduate school, I used to see Asian students chanting the Dharani before taking tests at the medical school, which was right by the art school.
Yeah. And the more you studied, the more the Great Dharani helped them. Yeah. Elizabeth?
For a chance that aren't pleadings, they all are. If you just chant them, I mean, I know that if you just do it long enough, words start sounding like somebody else is saying them, and it's it creates its own environment. So, I mean, that's the answer to that for me, anyway. I don't know how if it is for other people, but if you chant the Dharani for an hour or so, it's just the stuff coming out of you.
True. It has a lot to do with an energy that as you building an energy, and I think eventually the energy not takes over, but the energy is the Great Dharani and or the success.
Yeah, and all of these, just the chanting practice, just the Quantum chanting practice is like that. For me, anyway.
Right, it can be very, very energetic, and it's the more energy you put into it, the more you get out of it. Actually, in my opinion, in my experience. What's that, John?
I've just found it happens.
Right. Yeah, you don't have to. Right, you mean you don't intentionally think, "Oh, I'm going to put a lot of energy into this, and I'm going to get something out of it," or you just let it happen. Yeah, that's probably better.
Well, it would be also interesting enough. Last night at the Cincinnati Zen Center, we're learning the Jijang Bosal chanting. Oh my gosh! Once we finished with that, it was just like it just gave me like maybe too much energy. Like it's just like okay, I can't quiet down now.
Yeah. So at a retreat, so usually you do a good thing to do is to sit after chanting. Although it might be even harder to sit. So the chanting before sitting, especially in the morning or at night, is good because those are times when you might be sleepy otherwise. So that if you chant before you sit in the morning, then you stay awake. And again, if you chant before sitting in the evening, you're less likely to doze off, before the sitting is over.
True.
Yeah. So, Elizabeth, do you have anything to add? Do you ever chant for anything, Elizabeth? Have you ever chanted for anything? Or do you have any thoughts on the subject of chanting for a new car, maybe? I don't know.
I don't do that, but I do think that if you would have to be honest with yourself, like if you really, really wanted a new car, or if there was something else that you really wanted, I think it would be good to admit that and go ahead and chant for it, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. But it's an interesting question. And actually, I thought I saw on your website that you described chanting as like that there was being silent while meditating and chanting while meditating. Did you remember using those words? Chanting while meditating?
Chanting while meditating.
Or
I'm
chanting
not sure.
as meditation, like
Chanting
silent
as,
meditation, or chanting meditation, or,
yeah.
you know.
So I mean, yeah, I mean that's I got that from. I mean, Zen Master Sung San would say that, and Zen Master Degak will say that. Chanting meditations. There's so chanting, sitting, bowing. They're all meditation practices. I don't know. Does that is that what you were talking about, Elizabeth?
Yeah, I was thinking about that.
Mm-hmm.
It's no different than silent meditation, except that you're chanting.
Right. Well, and so it's noisy, right? And also when people are doing silent meditation together, there is, everybody has to be quiet. Everybody has to sit still. But the together action is not as tangible as it is with chanting meditation, because with chanting meditation, it's everybody has to be chanting the same thing, and there's a more coming together of what people are doing. There's definitely a strong aspect of together action, working together in sitting meditation, where people are you have to be quiet, you have to be still. But I think chanting makes it more. You have to all be chanting the same thing.
And the chants do have some meaning to them. So
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Oops.
But now, the issue of chanting for something is actually quite present when talking about Jijang Bosal chanting, because there's really two main reasons to do Jijang Bosal chanting. One is because, well, I would say three reasons, at least, and that's something I would throw out, to ask people what you think. But the most obvious reason to do Jijang Bosal chanting is because someone has died, and you're doing Jijang Bosal chanting for that person. And so there, I mean, you can either kind of do it with the intention of just saying, I don't really know what happens when people die. I don't know where my friend, my loved one is now, if anywhere, but I miss them and I want them to be, happy. And if there's, if Jijang Bosal can do anything to help them, please, Jijang Bosal, help them. There's that. Or you can be more specific. You can be more Buddhist about it. You can say, Jijang Bosal, help my friend, my loved one, in their journey through the middle existence, and help them to have a good, rebirth. And you can go even further. Help them to, guide them to the Pure Land. Guide them to the Pure Land. So you can do that, and that's the most, I would say, or the real classical example is, if you suspect that your friend or loved one might have done some things that deserve, not such a good rebirth, you can say, Jijang Bosal, please basically fix that, okay? Do what you can. And because that's what's in the Kshitigarbha Sutra. The classical examples, in two of Jijang Bosal's previous lifetimes, when Jijang Bosal was a woman, whose mother was not a bad person, but but spoke badly about the Buddha Dharma. And in both of those cases, when The mother died. The daughter prayed to Jijang Bosal. Well, actually, the mother, the daughter was Jijang Bosal, so she wasn't praying to Jijang Bosal, but she prayed to the Buddha of that time. And in both cases, her mother was saved from an otherwise very difficult rebirth.
Hey, Kurt.
Yeah.
Did her mother at that time, know that she was saying blasphemous things against the Buddha Dharma?
Yeah. So yes.
She knew it. Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah. So the impression that I get is that her mother, in both cases, is not generally portrayed as a bad mother, but as someone who had violated, the prime directive of Buddhism, because she not only spoke badly of Buddhism, she tried to interfere with her daughter's practice, tried to discourage her, unsuccessfully, but still. Anyway.
Wow.
But the moral of the story is, raise your daughters to be Buddhists.
Oh yeah.
And they'll pray for you when you die. Okay. All right. Oh, all this time that I've been talking recently, we've been talking, this slide is here, which asks the musical question. Let's see. Let me get my laser pointer there. Does reciting a mantra really somehow help us get rid of bad karma? Okay. So of the 5 mantras, which we will, we're running close to being out of time. In fact, we're pretty much out of time because we have to chant the Jijang Bosal chant now. But as I said, there's 5 mantras that are recited as part of the Jijang Bosal chanting. The very first mantra is, this mantra here, and let me see, it's a little confusing. Here we go. All right. And we'll go over this again in the next class. But the very first mantra is the mantra for eliminating difficult karma from one's past. And and so that's where we're going to pick up next time. We're going to go more into these mantras. And one of the great things about talking about each of these mantras in the Jijang Bosal chant is that this is a place where this practice really connects with East Asian Buddhism generally. All these mantras are widely shared across different Buddhist cultures, and not just East Asian Buddhism, but also Central Asian Buddhism. All Mahayana Buddhists have variations, either exactly the same mantra or similar mantras to all 5 of these. But now we're now at the point where we need to chant the chant that we're talking about. Are there any? I mean, I don't want to, cut across anything that someone wants to bring up or talk about. Are there? Does anybody have something they want to bring up now or ask about? So we're going to go a little long on time. We had a few hiccups. I will be sure to get the other John's email address. Should have done that before, but. And now I found the video, and now I will share my screen.
Jijang Bosal, 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 Jijang Bosal. Yorok Chanting Om Bharamani Dani Sabaha Om Bharamani Dani Sabaha Om Bharamani Dani Sabaha Om Shunturjino no Mamoka Salvadara Sadaya Shive Hum Om Mamoka Salvadara Sadaya Shive Hum Om Mamoka Salvadara Sadaya Shive Hum Sosotegya Sandarani Nam Samanda Motanam Abaraji Harasa Sananam Danyata Om Kakakai Kai Hum Hum Abara Abara Bara 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 Jita Jita Jiri Jiri Pada Pada Sanjiga Shiriye Sabaha Namu Samanda Motanam Abaraji Hadasa Sadanam Danyata Om Kakakai Kai Hum Hum Abara Abara Bara 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 Jita Jita Jiri Jiri Pada Pada Sanjiga Shiriye Sabaha Namu Samanda Motanam Abaraji Hadasa Sadanam Danyata Om Kakakai Kai Hum Hum Abara Abara Bara 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 Jita Jita Jiri Jiri Pada Pada Sanjiga Shiriye Sabaha Bobo Jino Om Horo Horo Saya Roke Sabaha Om Horo Horo Saya Roke Sabaha Om Horo Horo Saya Roke Sabaha Bobo Nyang Jino Om Samara Samara Mimara Charma Jagora Bara Om Samara 수지 대해 중수가 혼진 오공가량 공가에 모농진솔
Thanks, everybody. Great to see you.
Thank you.
And we'll be back in, let's see, 2 weeks? Let's see. In 2 weeks, it'll be April 4th, and that'll be the next meeting of this class. The first Tuesday, I think, did I get that right? Let's see. Yes, the first Tuesday of April. John looks confused. What?
It's the first and third. Is that what it is?
First and third. Yeah, so the chanting class is the first and third. The
First
other
and third.
class, first and third. Yes. Let's not make it more complicated. All right. Bye, everybody. Bye, Elizabeth.
Thank
Bye,
you.
Joe.
Bye.
Bye, John.
Thank you, teacher. Bye-bye.